Guys, welcome back. This is Christopher Aaron. This is the iGold channel. We're going to have a gold price update again. But before we do that, I want to remind you that you only have to be right once to change your life forever. And we have gold that is in blue sky territory, yet the market is overlooking some of the defined gold deposits that are already in the ground. The market is overlooking it. If we look back at all the times in the past when the market has overlooked these deposits, they eventually get revalued higher. And so in the second part of the video, I'm going to do an update on the company that we talked about 2 weeks ago, Bravvada Gold. The ticker is BVA in Canada and BGAVF in the United States. Since I mentioned this company 2 weeks ago, it is higher by 60%. And if you're thinking, well, I missed the move on Bravvada, remember, this is a 1 million ounce gold deposit in politically safe Nevada, United States. The market has been overlooking it, but apparently the market is starting to pay attention. If you think you missed the opportunity, I want to show you how you can still buy shares at the price that we bought 2 weeks ago before it rose by this 60%. You might think that's impossible. I'm going to tell you how you can do it later in this video. If you want to join us in that, investing together in Bravvada, remember you can buy shares in the open market. You use one of these tickers, BVA or BGAVF, depending on if you live US or outside the US. But if you want that initial 60% profit, you have to join us in the private placement. That's the only way to get that. Remember, I do not take any fees nor kickbacks from any of the companies that I work with. That is not my business model. That is my guarantee to you. They are not paying me a single cent to produce this video whatsoever. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at gold, our legal disclaimer, because this is so critical. If you put one and one together and you realize what the market is not realizing right now, let's look at the gold update. We can see since the beginning of the year, a very nice rising trend has formed. Remember, we're talking about gold, the highest levels that we've ever witnessed in the history of human civilization as recorded in US dollars. Not only US dollars, but basically every currency around the world. We can see this rising trend that's been going on here for the last 6 months. And then we can see what a shorter term downward trend from the recent peak at 3,500. And we've had this question here in our premium updates. We've been talking about which way is this going to resolve. Look, we got our answer. This thing wants to resolve higher. This thing wants to keep going. This does not look like a top formation to me at this point. This looks like a consolidation, a continuation pattern for the next leg higher. So we can get rid of that. We've resolved higher, and I want to share how I think this is going to play out for gold. I think we're going to see a little bit more here over the next week, possibly two, followed by a pullback. I don't think the pullback is going to be that severe, but it looks to me like maybe gold will fall $100, $110, $120. I mean, gold is moving $100 every couple days, so that could happen within a week. Then a recovery, and I think this market wants to test the all-time highs as we get into later this summer. Perhaps not break it on the first try, but kind of round up. I think this consolidation wants to go on here for a couple more months in an upward fashion and then round up, find support at the existing rising trend, and then break out to new all-time highs when we're talking a month or 2 or 3 from now, later this summer, July, August. Late August tends to be a very common time for gold to break out to new all-time highs. When we study the 2007 breakout, when we study the 2010 breakout, very common time, the 2019 breakout, August, September. So it's really aligning well with the seasonal factors. So we have the downtrend break here for gold. Remember this, we're expecting new all-time highs a little bit later this summer. And now we want to go back and talk about the updated opportunity here with Bravvada Gold. Remember, this is a company, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm not going to repeat everything in this video. So go back and watch the last video because that has all the details. I'm just going to show the updates that we're talking about here in this video. Remember, this is a company that has about 1 million ounces of gold in Nevada, United States. It is a tiny company. It had a 3 million market cap a couple of weeks ago. And this is the key point. Remember, I said you can buy shares in Bravvada. I own shares in Bravvada. Our premium subscribers own shares in Bravvada because I think it's going a lot higher over the next 6 to 18 months. You can buy shares in the open market if you want to use these tickers. However, if you want to achieve an initial profit of 60% just to start, just for participating, you're going to be higher by 60%. The only way to do that is in the private placement that we now have available. How is this possible that we have an initial 6,000 or 60% profit? Because we have negotiated with Bravvada management to lock in the purchase price of 3 cents per share. We have locked that in, and it is only good for 1 more week. I'm not joking about this. There are not very many ways in the financial markets to achieve an initial 60% profit, but we have one here. Now, from that point, from the 60%, it could keep going higher. It could go lower. It could move sideways. All of that is possible. But anytime that you're starting with a 60% profit to start, I mean, you're looking at these once-in-a-decade type of opportunities here. Do not ignore this. The other thing that you get if you join us in the private placement, as compared to buying shares in the open market, is you get free 3-year warrants, which are good at 5 cents per share. Guys, this closed at 5 cents per share today. So basically, anything higher than 5 cents per share, and these warrants get you additional profit above and beyond the shares. So remember, the only way to get these things is in the private placement that we have an exclusive allocation of here at iGold Elite Private Placements. This is a company that I own shares in already. Let's review some of the fundamentals on Bravvada. Remember, they have 7 or 8 projects here around the state of Nevada. Their flagship, however, is this one, the Wind Mountain flagship project. The Baxter project is another significant project that has an earn-in agreement already in place with Endeavor Silver. By the way, remember, Bravvada has about 12 million ounces of silver sitting in the Wind Mountain project. So it's a dual precious metals deposit, primary gold, however. This Baxter project has been optioned to Endeavor, and they've agreed to spend $4 million exploring Baxter over the coming years, which is equivalent to the entire market cap of Bravvada, inclusive of all the other projects. So one additional larger mining company sees so much potential in this Baxter project that it says, hey, we're going to put $4 million into this project alone. Let's get back to the flagship, the Wind Mountain open pit. Remember, this is an actual photograph of the existing mine. This is a past producing mine. This is not an exploration company. This is the hard thing for people to imagine. A company this size, yes, we're talking about a micro cap company here, a market cap of only 3 million a couple weeks ago. However, this mine here produced 300,000 ounces of gold by the previous owner in the 80s and the 90s. And the reason why they shut it down is because what were gold prices back then? Around $300 per ounce. So it was not profitable to mine. Guess what? Gold is now $3,000 per ounce. You think this thing might be profitable now? I think so. The market is overlooking it. However, we are not overlooking it here. I said, remember, they have a 1.2 million ounce known gold equivalent resource still sitting here at Wind Mountain. A little less than 500,000 ounces is used as what we call the core. It's the higher grade core, which we used in all of our cash flow estimates. Watch the previous video if you want to see that. The startup to bring Wind Mountain into production is estimated to be $48 million, which is tiny. Tiny. I'm telling you guys, the CapEx for most open pits can be somewhere in the range of $500 million. This is 1/10 of that. It will be paid back. This $50 million will be paid back in less than a year after they start producing, because gold is already above $3,000 and they're going to be pumping cash flow out of this thing like crazy once they start getting it into production. The key development is that the money that we are now raising for Bravvada is going to go into a pre-feasibility study, which will take 12 to 18 months to complete. Remember, that doesn't mean the company is going to wait 12 to 18 months to rise. It's already risen by 60% in 2 weeks. But within the next 12 to 18 months, they'll be releasing this pre-feasibility study. This is an official study by the Government of Canada standards. And after this study, they're going to be a much more significant candidate for a buyout by a larger company, because this study is basically going to say, hey, how much of that 1.2 million ounces in the total known resource is going to be proven and probable to extract at today's gold prices? I have to tell you something. I think it's going to be more than the market previously thought. The market previously thought maybe we'll get less than 500,000 ounces out of the ground. I think at 3,000 plus gold, it's going to be a lot higher than this. Here is the announcement talking about the initiation of the pre-feasibility study. This just came out a month or two ago. This is why the company is raising money now. And if you'd like to participate with us in the private placement, this is what the financing will go for. It is this pre-feasibility study which sets the stage for a buyout by a larger company. This is key. The market sentiment moves in waves, and we're just rounding off of the lows here as far as market sentiment. It's my observation, having done this for over 15 years, that most people were ignoring gold miners up until just about a month or so ago, a month or two ago. So we're just rounding up in that sentiment. Even though gold is above $3,000, you have to remember that Bravvada previously traded 200% to over 1,000% higher when gold was below where it is today. So this is how much of an undervalued level Bravvada is at right now compared to its intrinsic value. I want to show you the Bravvada chart. So what I'm going to do is bring it up here. This is the exact same chart, except this is the way that the chart looked 2 weeks ago. This is the way that the chart looks now. The reason why I'm doing both versions is because I want to remind you that if you are going to buy shares in the open market, which I suggest for certain clients, depending if you have the proper tolerance for risk and reward, I think this company is going to go a lot higher. From 5 cents, you can look that it traded up at 25, it traded at 40 cents in the past. But remember, if you buy shares in the open market, you will be buying at 5 cents now on that official exchange. However, if you join us in the private placement, you will be buying shares with us at the locked-in rate of 3 cents. Now, it might not seem like that much of a difference, 3 cents compared to 5 cents, but in a percentage term, this is. This is a 60% difference. And so what I want to do is show you a realistic expectation. For example, if from the current price at 5 cents, Bravvada just gets back to where it was a couple years ago, I mean, this is very feasible, up to 9 cents, that would be an 80% gain if you buy at 5. However, if you're buying at 3 cents, to get to the exact same level, this exact same peak that I'm talking about here, the gain turns into a 280% gain. And remember, part of this additional gain is because you also get the free warrants if you join us in the private placement. And then if you say, let's look at some more lofty goals, maybe this company can get back to where it was in 2016. Remember, gold was a lot less than it is today in 2016. What if this company gets back to where it traded then? That would be a healthy 700% gain in the open market, which is why I do think this is a valuable company for open market purchases if you're not ready to join us in the private placement. However, if you can invest the minimum, which is 10,000 Canadian, just to get to that exact same level, the 700% gain in the open market turns into a 1,933% gain since you're buying at 3 cents and the free warrants. So these are the metrics. I think Bravvada is going a lot higher over the next year or two anyway, but these are the differences that you can achieve if you are in that position to join us in the private placement. So that is what we are looking for. If you would like to join us in that private placement, the service for you is called Elite Private Placements. This is for higher net worth investors where you get that highest amount of leverage because you get the free warrants, and you also get to buy the shares at a cheaper rate. The deadline is Monday, June 9th. If you would like to join us in this private placement, I have negotiated one additional extra week with Bravvada management, and so that is why we have this additional time at the locked-in rate. If you would like to follow along with us as to the other companies that we are investing in the open market, not just Bravvada, but 9 other companies, the service for you is called Precious Metals Intelligence Plus. You receive videos just like you're watching right now, but much more in depth, where we cover not only the short term for gold, we also cover the long term, we also cover silver, we also cover all the additional mining companies that we are investing in, and all these other topics. If this is all too much and you just want to sit down and talk about your situation, get my take on what I would do if I was in your situation, know that you can reach me. You can book a consultation on the website. There's a tab right there. It allows you to view my available calendar, my schedule, and you can book a time at your convenience. And I just give you my independent, researched perspective on your precious metals portfolio. Remember, if you would like to join us in the private placement for Bravvada, the deadline is Monday, June 9th. No exceptions can be made. Remember, you only have to be right once to change your life forever. And I think this could be one of those times. Think about what you would do if you invested in Bravvada with us and it went higher by 10 to 20 fold like it did in past cycles.